Excuse me. We are crossing the Bay Bridge from Treasure Island to San Francisco. I apologize for the vibration, but I'm not allowed to hold my phone while I'm driving. So, yeah, I'm a little messy. I didn't shower this morning. I'm going up to do some not horribly dirty work, but some dirty work for a guy up in San Rafael again. My nose has been driving me crazy because of the mold. It's been, up until yesterday, it had been raining pretty much endlessly for a week. And so there's a lot of mold spore in the air. And it happens to me every time out here. But, so, with school, I'm happy to say that I've gone through the entire list of all the schools on the federal list to be shut down that are fraudulent. And one of the things that Sean Duffy said in his report, his press conference, was that essentially the schools they were shutting down were pumping people through at an incredibly high speed. Like you could get your CDL in a weekend. I don't see how that's even possible. But according to him, some states, including California and Illinois, and I think possibly New York, were allowing schools to actually do the testing. So you'd go to the school and the school would just basically push you through if you paid them enough, and you could have your, you didn't even actually do the test. You didn't actually learn any of the information. They would just basically fill out a test and send it in as though you had actually done it. And then you would just take your paperwork over to the DMV, and the DMV would issue you a CDL. My school doesn't do that. The school we're going over this stuff over and over and over and over and over. They have videos online in case you're hung up on an area. Like for example, when I first started at the school and I was studying for my permit, which I'd already done a lot of that studying. I'd already, looked into most of this stuff. I'd already passed the actual permit test a couple years ago, and that really hasn't changed at all. But it includes a lot of information on air brakes, and I really didn't understand air brakes. I understand hydraulic brakes. I've done hydraulic brakes on my cars and trucks and Suburban, and that I've done that stuff for years. So hydraulic brakes made perfect sense. But until I actually understand how air brakes work, the actual studying at the school didn't really make sense. I was learning more of the answers than the actual information. So you go to the videos online and see how the brakes actually work. And I actually went and looked at some mechanical stuff too. I saw some videos on brake failures for air brakes, and the guy actually doing the work, which really helped me personally, because I was able to visually understand the mechanics behind the air brakes. And then I walked into to take the practice tests for the permit, and was up to like a 98%. The only ones that I still had issues with were the trick questions. I don't understand why they do trick questions. If you're trying to learn how to drive and be safe, throwing trick questions at you doesn't, in my opinion, help. It makes things more confusing. I need the information that's actually the information, the factual data, not some load of malarkey that is making me think different thoughts that don't really pertain to the issue. Anyway, I went in and I took the DMV test. It was like 15 minutes, if it even took me that long. It took me longer to get to where I started taking the test than it did to actually take the test. And it took longer to process my paperwork after the test than it did to take the test. I was there for like 3 hours total, and it only took 15 minutes to actually take the three tests. And when they saw that I actually had my phone, they made me put it in my pocket to prove that I wasn't cheating, which, you know, I would, if it was face down with the screen off on the desk, I don't see what difference it would have made. Everybody could see me. They, you know, if I was cheating, they'd have known I was cheating. But anyway, so I go back to the school, and we're going over the same things still. The pre-trip inspection is like the most vital part of the test other than driving, and that is understanding what the components are on the truck and what to look for in a failure situation, like, you know, bulging brake lines or split brake lines, or, you know, are the brake pads worn down too far? And a lot of the people that are in the school don't understand any of what any of that actually means. They're just practicing pointing at components and saying the right words, which it's because they don't understand any of these. They're not mechanical people. You know, these are people that are largely like working at McDonald's and have never worked on their own car in their life, and they just want to get their CDL and hit the road. I don't work that way. I want to understand exactly what's going on, but I don't need to just look at it and go, yeah, there's enough brake pads, those brake lines look good, the oil's full, the, you know, coolant is full. I need to remember to say things like, the brake line is in good condition, it is mounted with clamps, they may say that, or it is secured with fittings on the ends of the hoses, that it has no abrasions, blisters, cuts, or leaks. With wires, it's no abrasions, cuts, or exposed wires, no corrosion, that kind of stuff. Where they want you to say that there's no less than a 1/4 inch of brake material left on the shoes, I want to look at them and go, yeah, those shoes are thick. You know, if it's down to a 1/4 inch, I was probably stressing about it, you know, days ago, because that's not very much brake material. When I look at the push rod and the slack adjuster, which is essentially the adjustment for worn down brakes, you can adjust the slack adjuster so that it can accommodate more worn down brake pads. They tell you, don't worry about this, you're not a technician. For me, of course, I want to understand exactly what's going on and you know, even how to replace my own brake pads. If at some point I buy a truck, you know, in a year or so, I actually go out and pick up a used semi-truck and start making $3 a mile instead of 50 cents or 60 cents a mile, and then I'm running my own load and there's nobody riding my butt, the difference will be that if I need an alternator, I'm going to change the alternator. If I need a new hose, I'm going to change the hose. If I need to do brake pads, I'm going to be the one that puts on the brake pads. And that's going to save thousands and thousands of dollars on any kind of work that needs to be done to the truck. The difference, and this is the reason a lot of people don't like being owner-operators, because of course they're paying for a mechanic to do all that work. But on top of that, when you're an owner-operator, you're in charge of having, you know, good tires. You have to pay for your insurance. You have to pay for all of the gas, or diesel in this case. And a lot of truckers just don't want that responsibility. They don't want to have to put up with all that stuff. And although I could understand that, if I'm taking a load that's going to pay me $6,000 and my brake pads go bad, I don't want to wait 4 days for somebody else to put brake pads on. I want to go over and buy the brake pads or brake shoes, and in 4 or 5 hours they're on and I'm on my way. not only do I not have to pay that mechanic $1,000 out of my pay, but I don't have to wait 4 days or whatever for him to get around to the job. I can just do it, get it done, be on my way. To me, that is a cost benefit. A lot of these truckers aren't going to be able to do that. And when I'm when I'm working for a trucking company, when I'm just a driver for a company, so a company driver, I'm not going to have any of that. If my truck breaks down, I have to just take it to whatever mechanic they give me or they send me to, and then sit there and wait for it to happen, and I won't be making any money during that period. To me, that's a big downfall, but I don't have the money to buy a truck, and until I actually do have the money to buy a truck, I'm just going to have to put up with that. It's just the way it's going to be. Hopefully they let me sleep in the truck while I'm waiting for them to do that sort of thing. But that's where we are right now. I've been in the truck. I've started the truck. I've moved the truck. I have not actually backed the truck up yet because this last week was all rain. It was raining nonstop. The wind was blowing like crazy, and the marina needed me there just in case the storm tore apart the marina like it did a few years ago. So I only got 1 day of school this last week versus the normal doing 4. Yesterday I did Instacart all day long, and today I'm in horrible traffic in downtown San Francisco, trying to head for San Rafael so that I can work for a friend of mine up there. I don't know why traffic is so absolutely horrendous. There has to be a game or a concert or something going on that's causing this, but typically this off-ramp right here takes 5 minutes from the bridge to where you're on the street, and it's taken me 12 minutes to go 2 blocks just now. It's a pain in the butt. I'm going to go around this guy because I'm close enough to do it now. And I'm going to go the wrong way. Normally I go 2 blocks to the left and then turn right and go over to the Embarcadero. Today I'm going to go 1 block to the right, turn left and go down to the Embarcadero, because then I can bypass all of this garbage, whatever this garbage is. And I'm going through a red light that doesn't even, or a yellow light before it turns red. Boy, traffic is just horrible coming the other way too. There's got to be a game or something going on downtown at the ballpark. Anyway, I've only got a couple of weeks until rent is due. Here's a guy with a Newfoundland in downtown San Francisco. 150-pound dog in an apartment building. Oh, there's a McLaren. Don't see a lot of that car in downtown either. Anyway, this next week's supposed to be nice, sunny, and warm, and I intend to be in class all week. This is a McLaren Artura. Check this car out. That's a pretty little beast. Try to get a side view of it. Oh, that's some money right there.